TMS WEB Core version 1.4 introduces several new components and controls to the toolset of TMS WEB Core. TWeb Continuous Scroll is one of those components. Just like any other control in the TMS WEB Core toolset, this control comes with a great example. And I'll be using this example to explain to you how it works. So first of all, what does this control do? Well, here you see a list of messages with some priority assigned to them. It's a task list, basically. And these messages have sometimes an icon which says mark as done, and you can see that the cursor changes to a hand, so I could click this and it changes over to done. But that is not the key of the component. The key of the component is that if you scroll down, at some point you reach the end of the list, and then you see a tiny little wheel turning and more messages are being retrieved from the server. So this is great if you have a huge data set that you need to scroll through step by step, or if you have a chat client, message client, and you don't want to show all those messages again, but you still want to have the ability to scroll through them if you're looking through them. But if only like the last 10 are important to you, you still have the option to scroll through them using this control. And the control offers to you the paging mechanism that you can request certain data in packages, and the scroll event is also triggered automatically. So you can focus on building the data retrieval and the design for each separate item on this list. And TMS WEB Core handles the whole data processing for you and also makes sure that the items are retrieved in the correct order and only a certain amount of objects are being retrieved from your backend at a time. This is determined by the so-called page size, so you can select a page size like here for 10. So 10 messages or 10 task items are retrieved at a time, and if you scroll through those 10 items, another 10 are being retrieved. The design time view consists more or less of placeholders. Here you see that placeholders can be used for these items. And of course, if we look at the property in detail, the item template, you can also assign HTML. And of course, the dialog shows you what your HTML does. For example, the first name, last name, and message are bold. So this is HTML that is included in the template, which will be used for every item retrieved from your backend. And I'm always saying backend because the backend could be a database, a JSON file. It could be anything that is being requested with a certain page size in intervals. From a design standpoint, it is important to note that you have, as always, the element class name to tie CSS layout to the control, and also that you have different load types. So that is really important. Like you can say, okay, I just want to load additional packages when the user is scrolling down through the list, or I actually want a button. And that is something I'm switched now, and now I'm going to start the demonstration again. And if you see now, we still have the same view as before, but instead of the next package automatically being loaded, we have to click the Show More button. Then the loading process is started. We can click Show More again, and it doesn't happen automatically. So going back to Delphi, you can also see that you can specify the caption for this button. Show More is the default, and that gives you the option not to load automatically, but also to load manually with button click. Also, you can determine if you really want to show this tiny little wheel turning that records are being loaded or items are being loaded. More important than the properties, though, are the events. So you have an event when the next page is supposed to be fetched, then you need to implement an event that is called for every item that is supposed to be displayed. And then for each list item, each separate field value can be manipulated. Looking at the implementation, what happens if the next page is being fetched, you can see that everything is being fetched from a server from TMS software. How can you see this happen when you run the application? You simply start the developer console. In Chrome, it's F12, switch to the network tab, and then you scroll, and we're still on the manual. So I click here, and here we see the request. So you see that the data is being requested in the background, and the package looks like this. So this is the data that is being retrieved, and you can see here page 4 and 10 records per page. So your backend actually needs to make certain that if the page number is 4 and it's supposed to deliver 10 items, that is what your backend is supposed to do. So if you use a product like Xdata, that is really easy to implement because Xdata offers URL parameters to do this paging with skip and top. Be aware that the parameters page and per page are of course variable. The key is that the fetch next page event gives you a parameter, a page size for the size of the page, and the page number. Where does the page size come from? Well, the scroll control does have an event where you can determine the page size. So I could very well set the page size to 5, restart the application, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as it says here on the right as well, and immediately show more is active. I have to click it, and there you go, 5 more. So this is how the page size is determined and also how the events are being delivered to the code that you implement. Be aware that you just need to deliver the URL. The request, which is asynchronous, of course, is all handled by the framework. So you only need to deliver a URL and that will suffice. You don't have to implement the data request or anything yourself. The getList item is actually being called for each item inside of the list that is supposed to be displayed. And I can't go into detail, but what happens here is that the JSON is basically being extracted and the different fields are being analyzed. For example, if the status of the task is done, we will change the class name of the element to done, which makes it display the little check. Same for low priority, medium priority, and urgent. One important thing I wanted to point out, you have the means to add custom controls or controls to this list. For example, here we create a TWeb button and add it to the list. And this is the means how you can basically interact with items on the list. So when you click this button, the event button click is called. Button click is a method, hopefully, in this class. And if we search for it, let's go back to the beginning. Here you see button click. We go to it, and here you see that button click is implemented, and it actually then sets the state of the task to done. So this is all that happens, and you have the ability to add custom controls or your own controls or even controls from the TMS WEB Core library to list items. That is all shown in this demo. More important to point out is the item GetFieldValue event, which is called for each time you access a field inside of your item. For example, if the field name is date, you want to make changes to the date. You want to format it a little differently. And the reason for this quirky construct here is that we increment a couple of seconds randomly because our post date starts with now being when we start the demonstration. So all the items that are on the list, if we go back to the application, are actually today, a little bit in the future, with a random value of 3,600 seconds. So that is why you see this change for the field date. But this, of course, can be any conversion that you want to make. For example, if your backend only returns a date as a string and you want to convert it to a date, you can do that here. If you get a URL for an image that you need to reformat or do something else with, or if you even need to request some more data, you can do that all in that method for each field. So in summary, this is a very great feature to have because it allows you to only show a few records of a data set, and you allow the user to request more in steps. This way, even if you have hundreds of records, you can put the most important records on top, but still give the user the ability to scroll down and see all of the data. Still, you won't overwhelm your users. And yet again, another great control added to the toolbox. It's a standard control, it's not a separate purchase, it will be part of TMS WEB Core version 1.4. No additional purchase for this control is necessary if you hold a license for TMS WEB Core.